Good morning, everybody. John Sfiocchi here for GAI Insights, doing the GenAI News Briefing, rating your AI and GenAI news for essential, important, or optional, save you valuable time and give you insight. So today we have a full house of analysts. Should be a great day. Got lots going on here. Everything from Microsoft talking about its OpenAI talking about its model guidance, all the way through new, very tactical implementations on OpenAI, ServiceNow and Microsoft coming together. And your host today is the ever effervescent David Delalo.
Thank you, John. And I'm definitely most excited about talking about AlphaFold 3, which I believe we're going to kick off with and hear from our armchair biologist, Tim, on what he thinks about that one. So we will just jump right in. Ankaj, you want to bring up the first article?
Yes, David. Yeah.
All right. I stole your thunder a little bit, but you can chat through this some.
No worries, David. So the first one that we have for today is from Google DeepMind. So they have a huge AlphaFold update for us, and also they're offering proteomics-as-a-service web app.
All right, Tim, are you blown away?
Well, yeah, I am. AlphaFold continues to be the real deal, in my opinion. And the ability now to not only sequencing proteins was amazing. Comparable to me to the Human Genome Project, the first time we decoded the human genome. But even back then, I remember in the late 90s, 2000s saying, it's going to take a long time because that's just the beginning, right? It's great to have the blueprint for the house, but that's not like having the house. House is very different from the blueprint. And it took a decade or so, and we've made a lot of progress since then. Similarly here, it's almost the holy grail, you could say. Having the protein folding sequence of a set of amino acids is pretty much the holy grail for biology, but it's like the first human genome. And so this is the second step, which is now we can not only predict the conformation, as it's called, basically the shape of the protein that comes out, but how it interacts with other proteins, which is the really critical part. And so, because your biology is very dynamic, what people don't understand is your little proteins are moving around a million times a second inside your cells. That's what really makes things happen, is when they bump into each other. And so this is the first model that starts to be able to accurately predict what happens when these things bump into each other, which is much more critical, because you can say, oh, I want to cause something to happen and it looks like it's got this shape here, and if I make one like this, it'll fit. But that's not clear that it will actually happen, because there are lots of other dynamic things, like how much energy does it take to push them together? Is there other things that are pulling them apart? And so is the overall gradient favorable for that binding? And that's really what makes stuff actually happen. And so, you can think of it like water coming into a bathtub and water going out of the bathtub. If you want something to really change in biology, the water coming in has to go faster than the water going out. It's not a static system, it's a dynamic system. So this is the first one that starts to get towards that. Again, lots more to be done. And my biggest disappointment, as we were noting before, is this is a commercial company. So they're releasing great. I compliment them on the research. They are releasing a limited free version of it for academics, but it's limited. And they have a proprietary biotech company as part of Alphabet that gets the real stuff. And to me, that is tremendously bad. Just, why are we doing this kind of research in a private firm that has much more impact, in my opinion, than DALL-E 3 and ChatGPT combined will ever have? So that's the sad part of it, but I'm glad they're doing it. At least somebody's doing it, and it's revolutionary.
What's your rating, Tim?
Oh, essential, certainly for the entire biotech life sciences industry. And, I think it's at least important for everybody, because it also broadens the horizon of understanding that these models can do things. Language is a very broad term. So protein synthesis is a language. just like image synthesis is a different kind of language from text synthesis, but they're all languages, and so they can all benefit from these large language models.
All right. Anyone feel that we should elevate to essential?
Yeah, I think for protein developers, it's certainly essential, but for general public it is important. The important thing, though, I agree with Tim, it's the fact that they open it to academics and researchers in general. So in my prior company, DSM, our researchers were excited tremendously about the initial release in whatever it was, 2018, and they have been using it ever since. So I think the use of it is quite broad, and people are getting new molecules from that tool. So the impact will be dramatic, I think.
Yep, but it is a limited version that they release. It's not the full version, and they don't release the data that they trained on. All the problems we see in lots of these models. There's not a lot of transparency at the mechanics and data level, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let me make the case for essential with Tim. I think, obviously AlphaFold's been on the bleeding edge. I think it shatters two things that are really important for the AI leader to understand when making his case. I think it shatters what is possible. Because 5 years ago, we weren't even thinking that this was possible. Now it's possible. And it shatters the notion that the leading research is happening in our universities. It's not. It's not been for a while. And I think the remaining of our lives, the best research, particularly in biology and AI, is going to come out of private companies. And that's a whole new world. And companies need to understand that.
All right.
Yeah, I'd go for essential.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to put the gavel down on essential. It's just a phenomenal development, but, agree with Tim that it's unfortunate that only a limited version will be public. But, I didn't get the sense, are they going to sell the full version?
Unclear. They have a biotech company that they're clearly using it for, and this is the classic, if you're in finance, do you sell the trading system to everybody, or do you use it to make money? Right?
Or spin it out.
Or spin it out, right?
We will.
I think it is even there essential for that they're opening it as a service. That's actually will put the field going forward dramatically. So.
Yes, I'm definitely going in there to make a protein after this, just like the reporter did for this article.
Yeah.
Just to say that I did it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We go with essential on AlphaFold.
Yep. So the next one comes from Microsoft, and Microsoft has introduced a new feature in the Copilot where it auto completes the prompts for you, to making everyone sort of a prompt engineer.
Definitely a helpful feature for many. John, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's coming in a couple months and so forth. So it's not widely deployed yet, but there's so much emphasis on prompt engineering, and also for those of us who use the robots every day, it's it really is a skill and a capability. But at the same time, and people are saying, oh yes, it should be a whole new curriculum. But I weigh in with the people that a lot of prompt engineering is going to be automated. So I would rate this at least as important, maybe even essential, because here you have the leading provider on the leading platform who is taking the next level of intelligence and giving it into everybody. And then they also have a little demo about how it's going to read your email and tell you what you should pay attention to, and takes you through the ServiceNow service interaction. It's pretty simple, but man, it's really slick. So I'd even give it I'll make the case for essential.
Essential. I think that I definitely was feeling at least important. There's so many people I know, very smart people, who still don't necessarily believe in the power of generative AI tools because they just aren't effective at prompting it to do what they want, and they get frustrated really easily. So,
yes.
I mean, this is to me, it's kind of a big deal if it works. Let's see if it actually works.
Well, the other thing is, think about what they're doing. Well, at least the example I gave looked pretty slick, the demo, but I mean, what demo wouldn't? But, the other thing is, this is part, the way I think about the problem is that Meta and Google and Amazon has a statistical model of my behavior and my cognition and my social cognition, who I interact with, what my network is, and all that other stuff. Amazon, not so much, but certainly Facebook and Google. Now this is going to start to have a semantic model of my cognition. Like, what's my communication look like? How do I interact? Which queries actually return. So I'm building a whole nother dimension of how my digital twin is getting built. And so I think that's going to be huge. I think that's going to give Microsoft a leg up in terms of how to advertise to me as search gets competed with large language models. Anyway, I think it's
All right.
One foot I would make I continue to see many companies are not seeing the value of the co-pilots they've invested in. The killer app is clearly, everyone keeps telling me, the meeting summary, and maybe this is a way for them to start justifying it. We saw in the Learning Lab this week that all the early enthusiasts are not using Copilot embedded. They don't like it. So I think they've got a long way to really continue to drive value, and this is an attempt towards that.
So, Paul, this is a nothing burger for you. This is Microsoft trying to justify their investment?
To the CIO, that's my 2 cents. But
so that would make
it's interesting, John, think about your model on what my digital twin is as an employee, and how Microsoft's really getting around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think essentially is something that the leaders should be aware of. Microsoft is deployed in very broadly. So I think the AI leaders should be aware of this development. This will sharpen the application of the chat and bots. And I think it will have a critical value to be had, right? So the leaders should be aware of. So I'll back Essential.
All right, we've got 2 essentials. Tim?
It's hard for me to go to Essential because it's not even out yet. It is Microsoft. I think, as usual, this is the classic Silicon Valley. Microsoft kind of started it, which is get something out there, even if it's really fuzzy and not clear exactly what it will do, clearly has some capability, and then figure out what makes it work. And one of the things that I think should have been obvious is prompt engineering is going to be hard for people. And so developing templates and helpers to do better prompt engineering is an obvious thing to do, and here they are. So, if they're good, they'll keep getting better at it, and eventually maybe Copilot will be worth it for more people. So that's sort of the way I see it. And to John's point, it also helps them get more info about us. So more of the you as product meta trend here.
All right, I'm putting the gavel down.
Essential.
I'm going to put the gavel down on Essential because of everything that has been shared already. Plus, I hear you, Tim, in that it's not released yet, but I don't think we'll get the piece of news when it is released to signal it. We found that happen before, so I want to go ahead and signal this to the AI leader now. So we're coming down on Essential. And
I will say it's great for those of us who have been watching Microsoft for a long time. It's lovely to see Microsoft come back with its absolutely ruthless, aggressive behavior and market overhang with announcements. That kind of went away for a little while. They're back.
I say they are for the vengeance. Okay, let's move on to their frenemy here, OpenAI.
Yes. So the next one from OpenAI talks about what should be the ideal model specifications and what is the desired model behavior that OpenAI wants to go with.
Yes, thank you. If you could share a couple of the prompt examples at the end as we're chatting on Kaj, that would be helpful, especially when I chat about the one at the very end, because I think it's very interesting. What do we think about this one? I believe we are back to Luda.
Hi. Yeah, so it is very interesting development from OpenAI. Certainly worth a mention, but I think it's optional news. It is important to put all of this wisdom together, but developers and users are not into standards. And I don't know how many would really engage and how much value this will create. So I'm very skeptical in how this announcement or this model will actually work in reality. So I'm optional on this one.
Any votes to elevate?
No, they didn't. There are a couple of big gaps here. Like, okay, this is great. This takes your input, but how does it actually affect your model's behavior? Like, can you really change it to make it accord to what people say? That's not entirely clear. And in fact, they gave a great example on their own of just how difficult it is because of the shoplifting example, where the shop owner is allowed to ask about shoplifting to prevent it. But how do you tell the shop owner from the shoplifter? They get the same information, right? So it's a big problem, and this to me is doesn't do much to really help it.
Well, it opens up a big debate. Scroll down to the last one, Ankaj. This one, to me, is the wrong answer. So they've got a prompt where someone says to the system, hey, the Earth is flat. And that is factually incorrect. Yet they have decided, and they say that they want feedback on this particular issue because it is kind of contentious. It says one of their principles is not to convince somebody of anything. And so therefore, when you tell it the Earth is flat, it gives you an answer. And then when you say back, no, it's definitely flat, it kind of backs off and says, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. That's not an opinion. So
it's interesting, Ethan Mollick, when he was presenting at the HBS Harvard Business School event that Paul and I were at, he said, as an aside, I don't know the research underneath it, that if there's evidence apparently that people who believe in conspiracy theories, when they go back and forth with a robot, actually are more likely to drop their conspiracy theories. So it does actually help convince people who think crazy things to be less crazy. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing. I mean, look, I think we're getting into a territory, and people won't use this language. We're getting into a territory where people are claiming everybody is, permitted to have their own epistemology. So, what's his name? The head of the House, Johnson, yesterday, day before said, well, I know, there aren't any facts to prove it, but I intuitively feel that illegals are voting. That's great to have the head of the House of Representatives basically say, hey, look, the fact trail doesn't, I don't believe in our voting system, but the fact trail supports that, I'm wrong, but I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So we're there, right?
Yeah, well, it opens up the question of when we say that we want AI to reflect our society. So we're basically saying, yeah, we're going to allow it to reflect something where, someone has an opinion about something that's actually a fact, and their opinion is not an opinion. So,
hey, liberal rational behavior, is an orchid or a violet, and it can be killed really easily.
So it will spur a lot of debate for sure, like this one that David, you are.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I felt like it was
I mean, for an AI leader, okay, yeah, but it is like so raw, so undeveloped. There's so many gaps in there. This is, optional.
Aren't these the types of things that an AI leader has to deal with when they're creating these systems? Like, for example, when they determine how they're going to reflect their company's values, right? Are you going to put things in the system that are kind of, going to drum the values into your employees' heads, regardless of how those dovetail with the rest of society? I mean, these are interesting questions to me, but I'll defer to the majority of
the issue is what's the practicality of it. So great, I put these inputs in there and say, don't do this, but then it tells me if I'm a store owner, I can still get information on shoplifting. So what's the practical implication here? If I'm an AI leader, this doesn't help me really. It doesn't tell me whether I can really get the model to do what I want.
Yeah, not yet.
It tells you that you have to think as you're fine tuning these models. But we'll go with optional, where we've been discussing things a lot here. We got 3 more articles to get through in 10 minutes, so I will move us along to the next one, Ankash.
Okay. So the next one is from holiday decor retailer Balsam Brands, and they talk about how they will be utilizing Gen AI going forward.
I personally feel like we can flip through this quickly, but Tim, what do you think?
This is like Paul's nothing burger of a nothing burger. It doesn't even deserve the name. It's a marketing use case study of this company that makes things that feeds snowflake data. That's it. They don't even talk about how they use the Gen AI really directly in any specificity. So
Tim, is this a fake nothing burger?
it's
a real fake nothing burger?
Oh, nothing burger.
What it is, I flipped around on the internet because I hadn't been familiar with the other company that they mentioned in here that they're utilizing, which is Sound Commerce.
Right.
So you'll find it's actually a press release from Sound Commerce.
Right. Exactly. I will say we've talked about Databricks plenty, and Databricks, I think, primary competitor is Snowflake, and the idea that data is important, sure. Gosh, I could say no, you know what, Sherlock, but that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they're going to use it is interesting. It's not worth reading the article for, but they claim that they're going to get near real-time feedback every 30 minutes around cost of order handling, cost of customer acquisition, etc. I mean, that's pretty cool if they're getting that in real time.
That's been done forever without using generative AI. I'm not sure. Again, that doesn't even explain why they need generative AI.
Yeah. All right. Let's go optional. It's not worth spending a lot of time on this one. What's next?
Okay, so the next one again covers Microsoft, and this is regarding their strategic alliance with ServiceNow, where users can now choose between ServiceNow Assist and Microsoft Copilot while working on different activities.
Yeah, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, John, and this one is yours. I think you're on mute, John.
Yeah, I think this. I was arguing for important, maybe essential in this guy because integrate. Yeah, it's it's promotional activity and so forth. But I mean, the article is very rah, but this customer service is so central. This whole notion of being able to do inline self-service, have generative AI be part of that service activity, how the service activity is more and more important. You have 2 very powerful companies doing this together. I just think there are other mega trends that make this important around increasing informationalization, computability of transactions, the fact that a lot of time more and more things, and there's been a number of books written about this, are going from buying a product to buying a subscription. Everything's a subscription. Profitability in a lot of industries has moved farther into the value use. So Otis Elevators make all their money on service, not on selling the elevator. I think all these things say that this interaction is critical in a increasingly digital world with profitability moving certain places, and adds all kinds of economic scale to service, and automates it and creates new profiles. So
David, did you see a quick process interruption, Adam's chat? There you go.
No, I did not.
Yeah, there we go.
I want to,
Adam, I'll take care of you.
I want to see how this works, though. We know Microsoft can be clunky as all heck, right? What does this actually look like in practice? What I want.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what it looks like in practice, is that they integrate with the ServiceNow service platform, right? So just
I'm not sure I could even get to important. I guess get to important. It's a it's a press release at a user show or whatever they do once a year kind of thing for ServiceNow. It's good. They're two important companies. If it provides better integration for Kanbans and things, which is the classic place that ServiceNow gets used, it'll be helpful, and they'll sell a lot of it. But it isn't even out again yet. So
I'll try and make the case for important. Paul, you want to jump in? Go ahead first.
Well, I was going to do my snarky "It's a Barney" announcement, but go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, no. So then I'll preempt that. This is in many ways what I would consider the birth of agentic systems. We now have the capability for Copilot to hand an agent in a completely different piece of software some sort of task and allow that to take it over. And that's something we haven't seen connected between systems before. So I think it's an important trend, and we're going to see a lot more of this happening in the near future.
I agree with Adam. I certainly agree with Adam. So what is happening, it's the Microsoft is reaching down into the models trained on that specific enterprise data and engaging those agents to perform tasks that spur from the Copilot prompt, right, or request. So it is certainly a first that we've seen, and it's massive. It's across the Microsoft install base and the other companies. So I think it is important to know.
Yeah, Akash, you want to weigh in here? I mean, I know you're texting around, the interaction with existing vertical systems.
Yeah, John. So, John, what Adam mentioned, so basically we have been reading these research papers around AI agents and their collaboration. And this seems like the first step where two major corporations are thinking in that direction.
Cool. So,
All right.
Paul, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Yeah.
All right, Paul, you've been overruled. They've made compelling arguments, and I had the agentic thought myself, but also then defaulted to, I wonder what this actually looks like in practice. But
well, if you look at the little demo thing, it gives you some. Just check out the demo link in the.
Okay, I'll have to move over to that. All right, let's move on to our last one. We'll go important on that one.
Okay. So the last one is from a study from Deloitte, where they highlight that 1 in 6 contact centers now have deployed GenAI.
Luda.
Yeah, I was between optional and important and ended up on the optional. The article is very hard to get what they were trying to say. It's a lot of percentages, but it's very surprising that only 1 out of 6 is actually using it. It's bad rather than good. So I feel that if you're really running a service center, and I have done so in GE, the Gen AI can be a massive improvement in training, productivity, avoiding going to the live agents. It just can be massive. So 1 of 6 is small. And
well, Luda, what I saw, to your point, I think 5 out of 6 contact leaders should be fired.
Yeah,
that's what I read into this.
It's very strange. And I think they cherry-picked people from their base of service centers. I decided it's optional.
Yeah, this being from this space is kind of a classic survey from consultancies that's got a lot of cherry picking of numbers, and I don't know if they cherry pick the actual respondents, but I'm a little turned off by it. Anybody else have any thoughts on that one? Okay, we will go with optional. We've got 60 seconds for Ankash to get our final summary slide together. The race is on. We had a couple essentials today, at least one.
The first 2, I think. Yeah.
Oh, first 2, that's right. We've got AlphaFold, definitely essential. Microsoft with their autocomplete, essential. Important on the ServiceNow and Microsoft. We've got two big Microsofts. Everything else is optional. Thanks everybody for joining today. We ran out of time. We wanted to hear what you both learned from Harvard Business School's event this week, so we'll save that for tomorrow. We'll try to move faster to get through that.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.